What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Primarch Purpose. This is a series in which I go in reverse Legion order, giving you my thoughts on what the ultimate endgame goal might have been for the Emperor's Primarch project. The Emperor undertook, I should say, the Primarch project, creating only a total of 20 Primarchs, of which we know 18, each one kind of custom built to have a specific function, it would seem. We never get to see it come to real fruition, however, because the Great Crusade is cut short, admittedly towards the later end of it, right? It was getting ready to wrap up, but it was cut short by the Horus Heresy. Primarchs die, Primarchs went traitors, so we don't know what the ultimate endgame goal would have been for a cohesive Primarch project fulfillment. And that's what this series is for, is to kind of look at that and see what if that was able to happen. What would the purpose be for the different Primarchs? So with that, there's a bit of a what-if setting involved. Firstly, we are looking at the Emperor being alive and well in an Imperial Truth-driven Imperium following a successful conclusion of the Great Crusade. We are looking at the Primarchs alive and loyal to the Primarch to the Emperor. So the Primarchs are all alive and loyal to the Emperor, leading their legions. So all the legions still follow their respective Primarchs. And as a result, this changes the landscape a bit. There's no ecclesiarchy or its forces, no need for it in an Imperial Truth-driven Imperium. There's no Inquisition as we know it or its forces either. Several legions take up that role instead, you could say. As far as the galaxy at large, there's still plenty of threats within and without, insurrectionist humanity and people, chaos corrupted, chaos demons, demonic incursions, dark mechanicum is still a thing for sure. Xenos as well. All the Xenos codices we know of would still be a threat. So all of that still is a thing, right, if this was the actual setting. So it's in this setting that we're going to take a look at the 4th Legion's Primarch. Since I'm going reverse Legion order, we're getting close to the end here. This is Perturabo, as I pronounce it. I could be wrong, but I say Perturabo. And he leads the Iron Warriors Legion. Perturabo is pretty cool. He's kind of the one responsible for coining the term Eye of Terror. He is very cold and calculating master of siegecraft, and he is a Primarch that can fool you. He's the one that can, if this was boxing, you think you have him red, and then he comes out of nowhere, right? It turns out he's a southpaw or something, right? He just comes out of nowhere and hits you with a haymaker you weren't expecting. And I said that because at first glance, for most people, Perturabo is a master of siegecraft. Iron within, iron without. He doesn't bring demons to the battlefield in 40k of chaos. He brings bolters, bullets, men, and tanks. So, with that said, he is amazingly adept at siegecraft. He is kind of the yang to the yin or yin to the yang of the Imperial Fist. He's the other side of that coin. If they could ever work together and not have this kind of deep-rooted kind of a it's hatred in standard 40k, but rivalry, they would actually make an unstoppable force with fortifications that could not be taken and sieges that could not be stopped. And that's true, that he is very capable at all of this. However, Perturabo is much more than just a master of siegecraft, and it's often forgotten and overlooked. He spent his entire life in the trenches, you could say, in terms of military stuff. And as a Primarch, he spent his entire time as a Primarch in siegecraft, right? One thankless siege after another, a war of attrition, years, decades even. Many victories, but also not much sung about in terms of his victories. His victories are either bloody and thankless and attritional, or they would leave nothing but a ruinous world in their wake. Yes, the world was conquered for the Imperium, but now they got to rebuild the entire world because it's a broken, ruined, ramshackle of a place now. But so in seeing that, it would be easy to kind of just write off the Primarch as that, and that's it. Which is still not that it's very good, you could say, but it's very much a very strong, capable Primarch and Legion in that regard, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But Perturabo is so much more than just a siege master. He is a true Renaissance man, you could say, when it comes to being a Primarch. He and Magnus actually kind of developed a bit of a relationship with each other in terms of being friendly and being. It seems the quote unquote reject Primarchs, are the ones that are more aloof and on the outskirts, tend to develop bonds. Perturbo, he's taciturn to the point of being insulting to others. He does not really care to speak with anybody. He is very much not one to trust anyone. If you earn his loyalty, you basically was one of the most unbreakable things ever. If he is loyal, if you won his loyalty over and his respect, you could say, then you have a almost unbreakable bond there. And I say almost because the heresy happened. We saw what happened there. But since the heresy doesn't happen, it actually would be an unbreakable bond in this what-if setting. And they developed a friendly relationship, you could say. Where calling them friends is maybe a bit of a stretch, but Perturabo, you could say his loyalty is his friendship in a way with Magnus, or it was there or was developing because they both were captivated by history of the past, and they both were seeking history of the past on Terra once they were both brought there. So they did that together. So that's one thing that, he's captivated by history. He loves history. He loves study. He's a studious Primarch. And that leads to kind of what I feel its ultimate purpose might be, which is an innovator for the Imperium at large. Because, yes, his siegecraft is undeniable. His methods are cold, bloody, ruthless, effective, logical, but destructive. Sure. He is unrivaled, you could say, in carving the most direct path to victory, heedless of the casualties, and regardless of the strain I might put on him personally and his legion, it didn't matter. He always plotted the most direct course to victory and would achieve it because the math worked, right? He is a master of siegecraft, a master of intelligence, you could say, and the calculus of war. So 2 billion dead to take down a cluster of worlds would, if that was the most efficient or the most direct course to war, then that's what he did, and it didn't bother him. So this left many a world on the brink of absolute destruction that he conquered, but he did conquer many worlds this way. But above and beyond his very cold methodology, his very logical, cold methodology of warfare, he was a scholar. He didn't just, do his siegecraft. He also created a lot of wondrous technology. He created new machines. He invented a bunch of stuff with discoveries and making blueprints. He would improve production methods. So he wasn't just creating a sword or making a piece of armor or a suit of armor. He would also draw blueprints and draw up treaties on things for increasing production methods. Like, it kind of sounds very mundane and boring, but he would be responsible for stuff like that. He had even stuff relating to astronomy and even medicine. He was an all-around kind of Renaissance intellect Primarch, and his technological prowess and knowledge is viewed as potentially second to none. Now, it's not the same viewpoint as Ferrus Manus, right? Perturbo's capacity for learning was ridiculous, and in terms of just raw scientific and technical intelligence, he might be viewed as the highest, the best, no other Primarch would be his equal in that realm. Now, it is a slippery slope to talk about because technology is also Ferrus Manus' domain, but it would be different facets of technology, right? Their focuses are different, and they're both king of their fields, if you will. So Perturbo would make things. Perturbo made a bunch of wondrous architecture. He was responsible, I believe, for creating the Council of Nicaea area. I believe. I could be mistaken. But he is very much a creator as well. He's often viewed as the destroyer, and he is very adept at that. But He is very good at creating. So I think he's very much going to be somebody who, in a Primarch purpose situation, somebody who what's the best way I could say it? Would be an innovator, responsible for pushing the Imperium's capability forward as a whole. Remember, the Imperium is still a little technologically kind of a technological phobia there. There's still a lot of, venerating the machine spirit and superstition and stuff. But I think Ferrus Manus and in this case Perturbo will be two big figureheads who kind of help push technology forward in their own ways. He had the intelligence of for siege warfare and in the mind of calculating, cold logic with that, but he also had the soul of a craftsman. Is the best way to put it, I guess. He created many things. He created a celestial timepiece for Gulliman. He designed the centerpiece at Nicaea for the whole Council of Nicaea thing. He was in the process of making a lion that he was going to give to Lionel Johnson, but it was never finished. So maybe it was finished and was given to him now. But he creates many things, not just bludgeoning weapons of war. He also creates trinkets and fine gilded eggs. He creates a lot of things that you would say would be the equivalent of what we do in gaming and making miniatures and stuff. He would do stuff like that. He would increase efficiency in production. He would make this awesome siegecraft battering ram death destruction cannon thingamabobber and better bullets. He is a real innovator, and I feel that would be his his big role. Yes, he is a master of siegecraft, but that's secondary. I think that just comes with the way his mind works, you could say. So his warfare is not really his claim to fame, which is interesting because for a lot of Primarchs, it kind of helps with their claim, right? Like their warfare is a part of their actual thing. And I think not that Perturbo doesn't want to wage war. He doesn't revel in the glory like other Primarchs do, pretty much at all. It's more so he has a big, volatile anger thing, sure, but I don't think he would be very much the concept of well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think the concept of not going to war would bother Perturbo. I think if he didn't go to war ever, he would still be fine and able to really use his technological prowess and understanding intellect to an amazing degree. But he is a Primarch. He is built for war, so he's going to tackle it without issue. So I think he will always be innovating. His Inner Sanctum on his flagship, for example, has plenty of wondrous inventions there as well. So I think whether he's on campaign or held up wherever he would hold up when not on campaign, whether he goes to Terra or stays on Olympia or whatever, I think you would see him constantly tinkering, creating, being a craftsman, going to war almost as a chore he has to do to get back to his tinkering. So that's why I say he's more of an innovator. Yes, he's a master of siegecraft. Yes, his methodology is cold and ruthless and leaves this wreckage and ruin in its wake. But, he's also somebody, it's equal parts that and innovation, I guess. And I've been rambling on long enough. But he's just, the more I learned about Perturbo through novels and the stuff like that, the cooler he became to me as a Primarch. He's a very practical guy. I mean, he's got very much issues. Every Primarch has issues, but very taciturn to the point of insulting. Absolutely violent in anger. Cold, calculating, demands ruthless efficiency. You fail, you die basically, and then you crush the enemy utterly. One of his quotes that I think is pretty awesome is, "Tell them ruin has come to their world, death, despair, and red war. Tell them their hopes and pride have come to nothing. Tell them their empty whispers fall upon deaf ears. Their gods are dead. Human reason has killed them. Tell them the angel of death have come. Tell them nothing can save them now." Yeah, it kind of sums up his way of war, doesn't it? He's just going to crush you to nothingness over a long and potentially costly war, but it's what he calculated to be the most prudent path to victory, and therefore he goes that route. So that's my thoughts on Perturabo. Pretty cool Primarch in my opinion. What are your thoughts on him? Is he just a massive siegecraft to you? Did you know about his innovations, being an innovator and a craftsman, and kind of like a Leonardo da Vinci, if you will, only, you know, with sci-fi stuff and all that jazz, and a Primarch? Share it in the comment section below. I really enjoy the model they made for him. I think he's just a really cool Primarch. He's got the wrist-mounted cannons. I mean, I just think he's really cool, and it's a real shame he went traitor. If I ever did collect the Chaos Force, it'd be the Iron Warriors. But it's a real shame the Iron Warriors went traitor. I think they could work hand in hand very well with the Deathcore Krieg. And in fact, for this what if, the Deathcore Krieg being a thing more than likely, that would be one of the forces they probably typically go to war with. They have a very similar mindset, and the casualty rate and the cold calculation methodology of war. Deathcore Krieg kind of live to die in the trenches. It's very weird. But I think Deathcore Krieg plus Imperial forces of the Iron Warriors in this case, because they're not traitor, they're Imperial. So the Imperial Iron Warriors, if you want to call them that, and the Deathcore Krieg would go hand in hand and be an absolute brutal war engine as well. Obviously, Imperial Fist Iron Warriors would be unstoppable as well, but then they're never going to get along. I think the Iron Warriors, they get along very well with the Deathcore Krieg's command structure, and probably, certain legions actually do have forces they'll fight alongside and prefer to have seconded to them and everything. And I think in this situation, when the Iron Warriors go to war, if they need a human auxilia to support them and be part of their warfare, I think the Deathcore Krieg would be their go-to for sure. Anyways, that's all speculation. We'll never know. Very cool Legion, very cool Primarch, one of my favorites. What are your thoughts for this guy? Share in the comment section below. Thanks very much for sticking through it. I could go on and on about how cool Perturabo is, but I think I'll stop. I've done that long enough. Anyways, purpose, I think Ultimate Innovator, being one of the Primarchs to help push the Imperium forward, right? I think in the 41st Millennium, between him and Ferrus Manus, we would have Mark whatever armor, we'd have ridiculous siegecraft tanks, ridiculous special issue ammunition, crazy production technology, stuff like that. Anyways, that's it. So until next time, take it easy.